AT, it is. We called it Alabama Envy Week from the start of this week. It doesn't sound like Nick Saban is envious of the way his players have practiced, however. When you read into some of that, I don't know, it makes you feel like he's not happy with his team. I don't feel like he'd lie about that kind of stuff. Maybe the Razorbacks have a chance tomorrow. What do you think?
So, I would say a couple things. One, I heard Colin Cowherd the other day say this about Patrick Mahomes, about there's almost this fear of criticizing Patrick Mahomes because he's so well-liked and, he could make you look really stupid. I think there's a lot of that with Alabama. Like, I don't know how much you guys get to watch because I know you're covering the Hogs every weekend, but this is not a vintage Bama team, and they have holes in their games. I mean, I'm sure it's been discussed at length on your guys' show. The last time they played an SEC opponent, they were held to 6 yards rushing, Phil Elson. You could have gotten 6 yards rushing against LSU. So I bring all that up to say, like, this is kind of one of those really interesting games where, it's about a 3-point touchdown differential. I understand why. I'm not positive that Arkansas is built to expose Alabama's weaknesses. Arkansas is not really known for its pass rush or that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I would also say that if you watch these two teams, one thing you can't deny about Arkansas is they play hard, play for 60 minutes, keep themselves into every game. And the opposite is true of Alabama. They kind of let teams hang around. LSU loses by 6. Tennessee, it was a touchdown score into the fourth quarter. So, listen, it's good being on the side of Nick Saban when it comes to these conversations, but I kind of agree with Nick Saban. I think this team is due for I just don't think this team is going to – let me put it this way. I know Bo Nix is out next week. I don't think this team is going to blow out two straight teams going into the SEC championship game, and, we're going to be going into that week saying Alabama has caught Georgia. Let me put it to you that way.
Yeah. Well, when you go back and look at the season that Alabama's had, and they're not vintage, but they're still a very good football team. Still, why are they not vintage? You just go down the list here. They don't stop the run the way that you're used to. They don't run the way that they usually do. And just 3 close games, including the loss to Texas A&M. But when you look at the other 2 tight games they've played in the SEC, it's been a bad LSU team. It's been a Florida team that theoretically, as everybody is saying, has given up on Dan Mullen. So I don't know. I mean, but that those 2 programs should have the talent theoretically to compete with Alabama's athletes on the field, and they just you're just not used to seeing Alabama play these close games unless it's against like Georgia or Clemson. They're not running through everybody the way they're used to.
No, there's no doubt, Phil. What I would say is a couple things. I think they've really, if you really break it down, and because of what I do and going on radio, I watch all these games all Saturday long. I think you can argue 2 things. The best half of football that they've played was probably the first half against Miami, the first half of the first game of the season when they had 9 months to prepare. And that really, outside of the Mississippi State game, which I will give them credit, they looked awesome, against real opponents, like take out New Mexico State and whoever they played, Southern Miss earlier this year. The only real complete game that they played was against Mississippi State, and that was directly off of the loss to Texas A&M. And so what does it mean for Arkansas? I don't know. Are you guys all going to be, burning down this? Are you going to be burning couches on Dixon Street tomorrow night? I don't know. But I'm just saying, I don't think this is a vintage team. I think they can be beaten. And I do think that Arkansas plays the kind of style of football. I mean, we've seen it the last few weeks. It's just stay in games, stay competitive, give yourself a chance to win. They've done it 2 weeks in a row now. I don't know if they can do it 3 weeks in a row, but if there was ever a time to catch Bama off, 3-4 straight wins, dominant effort last week, I don't think this is the worst time to catch Bama is what I'm saying.
Aaron, it's along with Arkansas and Bama this week, it's also the cupcake week of the SEC, and or as I like to call it, the hate on the SEC week from every other conference, every other media member, that doesn't cover the SEC, and frankly, it feels like a lot of them have it out for the SEC. Why do you think that this week, 1 week out of 13, gives them a reason to feel justified to say that it just doesn't mean more in the SEC? See, this is why the SEC isn't the best football conference. Why is 1 week this week apparently worth so much more in other people's minds than what it truly is?
Well, I'll jump in here, Drew. First of all, I am probably, you're right, the only national media member. I've never understood this outrage. And I think what people are mad about is that the SEC gamed the system. The SEC gamed the system. And I think it's really interesting because we know the narrative is you lose a game early. Phil just brought up a great example of that. Alabama loses to Florida, or Alabama barely beats Florida early, and we think Florida must be awesome. Oh my goodness! Mm-hmm. And then we realize, oh wait, they stink too. But what I would also say is, I think conferences are getting smarter about this. Okay, so look at the Big Ten this year. The Big Ten, I thought had a lot of guts to schedule big games in Week 1. In conference, Minnesota, Ohio State, Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin, Penn State. And what that does is it completely changes the narrative of your conference for the teams that win. I mean, we thought Penn State was one of the 5 best teams in college football in about the middle of October. Now, they had some injuries and stuff like that, but it completely changed the entire dynamic of how we talked about the Big Ten, how we talked about Iowa. Oh, my goodness, Iowa beat Indiana. Indiana, Week 1, what a win. Indiana's ranked. What is Indiana now? They're like 3-9, 3-7, whatever, So what I would say is I think other conferences are getting smarter. I've never understood the outrage. And if Alabama and Arkansas are good, or Alabama and LSU are good, or Arkansas and Tennessee are good, or whatever, they're going to have to play at some point. And I've never understood it. If Alabama's playing Florida, September 27th as opposed to November 11th, I just don't understand why it's a big deal. But you're right, Drew. This has been a conversation forever. The other dumb one that I don't get is, the SEC, they only play out of conference games on neutral fields. It's like, yeah, but when you beat everybody by 1,000,000 points, who cares? But anyway, I digress. I'm just going off on a tangent here.
Hey, I'm with you.
Called me a lot of coffee this morning.
I'm with you, AT. Basketball-wise, though, next Monday, Arkansas kind of will face its first real Power 5 test in Kansas State. Then if they win that game, should be playing Illinois. What kind of chances do you give Arkansas to go 2-0 in Kansas City?
Well, I think they're pretty good. Kansas State's another team we're trying to just learn about. They haven't really played a ton of elite competition so far. I talked to Bruce Weber a little bit in the summer, and he liked his team. They're another team that they've never really done the transfer portal thing, but kind of had to just because it's the new world we live in, and they played 2 games, and they're 2-0, and they've won both games pretty convincingly, so credit to them. But it's a game Arkansas should win, and I know Arkansas hasn't been incredible this year, but I think it's a game they should win. And then I'll tell you this, I actually think, as weirdly as it sounds, I think Arkansas is uniquely built to beat Illinois. And that would sound weird because Illinois has a 7'1", 295-pound guy, and Arkansas really has nobody to contend with him. But they also, if you watched that Marquette game the other night, they turned the ball over 26 times, them being Illinois. They have a young point guard named Andre Curbelo who's talented, but I thought he was getting a little too much hype coming into the season, and they're struggling kind of in the turnover department. So, we'll see what happens. I sound like, Bill Belichick here. We're focusing on Kansas State right now. But as weird as it sounds, because you sit there and say they're playing a 7'1" guy, and Arkansas obviously doesn't have a ton of size and certainly not a ton of, like physicality down low. I mean, they have Connor Vanover, but, he's not going to be able to handle Kofi. I actually tend to think that it's actually a good matchup for Arkansas because of the way they can force turnover. So it'll be fun, and I just think next week's awesome because kind of to your last question, Drew, about, in college football, finding out about teams early and what does it all mean, I think we're going to start to get a lot of those answers for a lot of different teams in college basketball as well.
Today's Muss's birthday, AT. I think he's, what am I looking at here? 57 years old, if I'm doing my math properly.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you get the guy who's got everything for his birthday? Because I think Muss might have, everything, just about. Other than the national title, maybe that's what you get for him, but you just can't, buy one of those for somebody. Yeah. What would you, Muss, you've had him on your podcast a bunch of times. I have no clue, what to get the guy who has everything. What do you think?
What would make him happier more than anything? A win in his next game. That's all he really cares about. It really is. I mean, I didn't really watch a ton of the Northern Iowa game, but, you give up 83 points. Still, get him a few more defensive stops. I don't know how you do that. I don't know if you can get that on Amazon these days, but that is probably what he is wishing for the most. By the way, how much time do we have left? I got something interesting going on in my life right now that I want to share with you guys.
Sure, go ahead. What do you got? Go for it.
Well, I got right now, so I've been off social media all day because because I've been actually doing my own podcast. I now have Kentucky fans, and I have them in a pretzel right now because Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio, just reported that Mark Stoops has been contacted by LSU for the coaching job. And
wow.
I said something to the effect of, all that's happened by LSU opening up back in October or whatever it was, early October, is all it's done is gotten a bunch of people extensions. Mel Tucker got an extension. P.J. Fleck got an extension. I've actually heard that James Franklin may be getting an extension here soon, as weird as it sounds. And so, Kentucky fans are both mad at me for suggesting that Mark Stoops isn't the first choice, but also really upset because they don't want him to leave. So I don't think they know what to do right now. Do they get mad at Torres for saying that Mark Stoops is very clearly the 8th, 9th, 10th choice if that's what they ultimately end up with? Or are they happy that they may lose their coach to LSU? So we got an interesting predicament going on in my world right now where, my DMs, there's some not nice things being said, and then there's some, do you really think it's going to happen? What do you think? Blah, 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 this and that. I will say this. Nice for Arkansas fans. Sam Pittman basically saying, if they let me, I plan on retiring here. You don't got to worry about all this coaching carousel nonsense. So I guess you guys got that going for you.
Hey, I think I'm just envious of you and proud of you for getting Kentucky football fans pissed off at you instead of the basketball stuff, man. I mean, that's an accomplishment in and of itself that they actually care about it, which says a lot about the job Stoops has done. But you're right about that. I mean, it wouldn't
be the worst hire, right?
No,
he did a great job.
Wouldn't be the worst hire if you've built Kentucky into anything that's resembling success, which they are right now. Then you've done a fantastic job. But, it's just the word that gets thrown around is like sexy. It's just not a sexy hire. But who cares, right? I guess maybe LSU does.
Well, I was going to say, I always say this on my podcast. I'm sure I've said it with you guys. With all of this stuff, two things can be true. We can all agree that both what Mark Stoops has done at Kentucky is incredible. They'll build a statue for him someday, whether he ends his career there or not. And what is also true is if that guy is the hire, after we've heard Lincoln Riley and Lane Kiffin and Mel Tucker and Mike Tomlin, if they get Mark Stoops after getting their hopes up with Lincoln Riley and Mike Tomlin, that fan base will not be happy. The fan base being LSU, and then, of course, Kentucky would have to rebound from there. So, interesting stakes. But, Phil, it does speak to what you said, is the fact that it shows you kind of how far Mark Stoops has come, that his name would even be mentioned at a place like LSU. But, yeah, I don't think the LSU fan base would be thrilled if that was what they ended up doing. So,
would it make LSU fans a little more excited, say, when you think of Mark Stoops, who his brother is, maybe brother joins the staff? Big game Bob? Huh?
I don't think Mike Stoops is. Oh, you're talking about Bob Stoops. That's you want to know. I mean, the LSU fans would be sprinting to the message boards to be the first one to say we got the wrong Stoops. So it's a great point by you, Drew. I mean, you talk about not being a sexy hire. He wouldn't even be the best candidate in his own family. Oh my goodness. I will say this is some of the fun stuff about this coaching carousel, and it really isn't funny, right? There's coaches that lose their jobs, all these players. If it's your son at USC or LSU right now, you feel terrible. But it is funny to just follow this stuff from a distance, and when you're not involved, and like an Arkansas fan, your team's winning right now, your coach isn't going anywhere. It is kind of fun to follow this stuff and just say, just kind of look at it from a distance and watch all these fan bases melt down. See, this is what we have in common, guys. I got Jim Mora. You guys got Sam Pittman. We got two of the best in the game. We don't have to worry about this stuff. Our coaches aren't going anywhere, baby. How about that?
There we go.
Said. AT, we'll let you go. Congratulations on the pretzel you got the Kentucky fans into. My only advice, though, is when you get fans in a pretzel, throw some salt on that pretzel. You'll have a little.
Ooh, I like that.
All right.
Hey, are you guys? Hey, am I on with you guys next week really quick or what? You can text me if we got to go
that's
to break.
right. We're off next week because Arkansas plays Missouri at 2:30 Friday.
That's right.
That's right. Have a great Thanksgiving, Aaron.
You too, gentlemen. I always love coming on with you. We'll talk 2 weeks from today. Thank you.
Appreciate it, AT.
Thank you very much. Aaron Torres Sports
We're back and better than ever. A new web interface to start the basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your #1 spot for all basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV50 to receive your bonus. From From basketball, football, and baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.